Today we'll look into what are the health indicators. Okay? Health indicators are nothing but the way to measure health. Okay? The way to measure health. What do you mean by measuring health? We all know what is the definition of health. It is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Okay? So, there are certain many aspects of health. Okay? There is not only the absence of illness but also present of wellness. What does wellness mean? Mean how much the preventive measures are being made so that diseases do not occur, how much the healthcare is accessible to the public, etc. So everything has to be measured so that we know that which sector of health is good, which sector of the health is not performing satisfactorily. These health indicators help us understand that where the action needs to be taken very urgently or where the money and the allocation needs to go. So, those are the health indicators by which we measure the health, the status of health. So, what are the characteristics of indicators? Ideal indicators should be valid, means they should measure what they are saying they are measuring. Okay. It must not say maternal mortality ratio and then measure something else. Okay. It should be valid. It should be reliable, means the answer should be same measured by different people under different circumstances. One government body is measuring something, another government body is having a different answer. So that then indicator is not reliable. Okay. They should be sensitive. They should be sensitive to the changes in the situation concerned. They should be specific. They should reflect the changes only in that situation. Means other situation changes should not affect the indicator calculation. They should be feasible, means measuring that should be easier, okay, and not beyond your scope. And finally, it should be relevant. They should contribute to the understanding of the phenomenon of interest. Means it should be important to know. Okay, so these are the characteristics of ideal indicators, ideal health indicators. But obviously, since there is a term ideal in it, means it is not valid all the time. Some of the criteria are sometimes missed. So let us have a look. Now, there are two terms that should be made clear at first. There is the index and the indicator. You will come across two terms, index and indicator. So what is index and indicator? Health index is generally considered to be an amalgamation of health indicators. Means in clubbing all the indicators, some indicators you find make an index. For example, physical quality of life index, okay, then human development index. So this is an example of an health index, human development index. It forms from three indicators: life expectancy at birth, mean years of schooling, expected years of schooling, and GNI per capita, means gross national income per capita. So these are measuring very specific things, but if you club them and want to measure some abstract concept like what is the development of this country, development level of this country, then you make an index. So indicators are very specific, measurable and very realistic, but index is something a bit of an abstract concept which cannot be measured directly. So you measure the index through clubbing through indicators. Understood the difference between the two? Okay. Now, indicators example, this is one example, birth rate. Birth rate is directly measurable. How? You take in the denominator the median population, estimated median population in that area, and then the number of the live births during that year in the numerator. You multiply it by 1000. So this is an example of a birth rate. It is an example of a crude birth rate in a specific area. Okay, so this is how an indicator looks like: birth rate, death rate, etc. Now, what are the types of health indicators? This question has come in your senior batch. Okay, so what are the types of health indicators? There are mortality indicators, morbidity indicators, disability, nutritional status, healthcare delivery. Utilization means utilization of health services. Indicators of social and mental health, environmental indicators, okay, socio-economic indicators, health policy and quality of life indicators. So there are different types of indicators that measures different aspects of health as we started. Okay. So what are these indicators? You have to just know, because in each chapter you will read, you will come across different indicators. So in this lecture I will not go into specifics of each indicator. Okay, but I just want you to understand that how important are the indicators in each aspect of health. For example, mortality indicator is one is crude death rate. Similarly, like birth rate, there is the median population in the denominator, number of deaths during that year in the numerator multiplied by 1000. So this is the crude death rate. Okay. This is an example of mortality indicator. Then there is the expectation of life indicators like expectation at birth. It is the average number of years that will be lived by those born alive into the population if the current age-specific mortality rates persist. Means if the same rate of death is persisting, then the number of years, average number of years a newborn is expected to live. Okay, that is called the life expectancy at birth. Similarly, there is life expectancy at age 1, which is used in the PQLI index. It is a demographic measure that indicates average number of years a 1-year-old child is expected to live. So this is another mortality index, by the way. Then there is a cause-specific mortality rates. What do you mean by cause-specific mortality rate? Cause-specific means number of people who are dying due to a certain cause. For example, a certain disease like tuberculosis or dengue or diabetes, like that. Okay. So in the denominator there is a median population and the numerator there is a number of deaths due to that particular disease. So this is a cause-specific death rate. This is an example of cause-specific death rate like in 2019 the top 10 causes of death in India. Now how will we know the top 10 causes of death in India? Because we found out the cause-specific mortality rate of each disease and then ranked them. So the top was the ischemic heart disease, then COPD, then stroke, then diarrhea, TB, neonatal, lower respiratory, diabetes, cirrhosis and falling. Okay. So these are the top 10 causes of deaths in India in 2019. How did you calculate that? By the cause-specific mortality rate. So that is why the indicators are important, so that we know where the disease trend is going. Okay. Then there is the proportional mortality rate. Proportional mortality rates means when there is a term called proportion. When I say proportion means out of something, right? Out of 100 or something. Means if there are 100 people who are suffering from a disease, then how many are dying? Or if 100 people have died, how many of them have died from a certain disease? So out of the total thing, how much of that subset has died from? That is the proportion. That is usually expressed in percentage. Means the number of deaths from the specific disease divided by the total number of deaths in that year. So note that in the denominator there is no longer the median population. It is the total number of deaths and among them who died from a specific disease. So that is the proportional mortality rate, and that is how it is different from cause-specific mortality rate. Okay? Because the proportion word is in therein. Then there is the under 5 proportion mortality for age 50 years and above, etc. etc. We will read this in details later in classes. Okay. Then there is a case fatality rate or ratio. You have heard this term very often in diseases. Okay. So it is the total number of cases due to the same disease, and out of that total number of deaths due to that particular disease. So this case fatality ratio rate, it is usually taken in a very short period of time, when a certain disease outbreak or epidemic has occurred, and among them how many have died. It is not for long-term diseases. Okay. So this is the case fatality rate. Then there is the maternal mortality rate, infant mortality rate, under 5 mortality rate, etc. Just note that in the maternal mortality rate, it is written like rate, but it is actually a ratio. Now we will understand later that what is the difference between the rate, ratio and a proportion. Okay, you have heard 3 terms by now: rate, ratio and proportion. So what are the difference between them? I'll come a bit later. Then there is a neonatal mortality rate, how many neonates have died. Post neonatal, how many uh, infants have died after the period of neonate, means after 28 days of life. Then there is a perinatal mortality rates, how many children have died around the time of birth, before and after, etc. Okay, so these are in summary the mortality rates, means you are measuring the death rates in almost each population. Okay, now I said that difference between rate, ratio and proportion. Any event which is occurring out of a population who are susceptible, means for example, uh, during the COVID-19 outbreak, right? During the COVID-19 outbreak, everyone was susceptible to COVID-19. Everyone can have COVID-19. None of us were immune to it. Okay, so out of the whole susceptible people, how many were affected? If you calculate that then that is a rate. Very simple, number of events occurring out of a susceptible population. Then what is a ratio? If you are measuring two different types of values and dividing them. For example, maternal mortality is called ratio. Why? Because in the numerator there is the maternal deaths and the denominator is the number of live births that are occurring in the year. So one is not the subset of the other, or one is not occurring in the other, right? Those are two different values. And by that, comparing the two values, we make an indicator that is called a ratio. Okay? So there is a rate, there is a ratio. Then what is the proportion? What is the proportion? Proportion is a specific kind of like a ratio where in the numerator is a subset of the denominator. Okay? Numerator is the subset of the denominator. That is why you calculate that in a percentage. So that is a proportion. So again you will learn this in later classes again and you will understand better. We have done with the mortality indicators. Now there are the morbidity indicators. There are some like incidence, prevalence, notification rates, attendance at OPD, admission and discharge rate, duration of stay. No one is dying here, right? No one is dying here. But we are wanting to measure the burden of the disease. How much problem the disease is causing. So that is what the morbidity means. It is different from mortality. Mortality means death. Morbidity means how much a person is suffering from a disease. Burden of the disease, that is called morbidity. Out of that, incidence and prevalence are the most important indicators here. Why? Because incidence and prevalence are very simple terms. Incidence means number of new cases that are occurring in a susceptible population in a particular year. And prevalence is the total number of cases that are there in the population. Means old plus new. The previous cases plus the new cases that have occurred this year. So that is the prevalence. So these are the two most important indicators of morbidity, incidence and prevalence. Other than that, you can see there are no death rates here, right? So that is why it is called the morbidity indicators. Then there is the disability indicators. What are disability indicators? There can be event type and person type. Basically, this is there in your book. I will not go through this very in detail because this is like a rote learning thing. What you need to understand is what do I mean by disability? How is it different from morbidity? Morbidity means the burden of the disease, right? But if that disease has caused a disability in a person, means that daily lifestyle or the job or anything else or a body part has been affected of a person due to that disease, that is called the disability. So separately you measure the disability by there some indicators. Okay. For example, one disability indicator is DALY. DALY, which is a disability adjusted life years. Now what do I mean by DALY? DALY is a very important indicator. Why? Because this is also a very important indicator that is measured throughout the world under the burden of disease study. There are studies going on every 10 years throughout the world, that is the global burden of disease GBD study. Every 10 years there is the study and they measured the burden of the disease throughout the world, country specific, each country and all over the world, how many people are dying from certain diseases, are suffering from certain diseases and are disabled by certain diseases, and they rank those diseases. So there is a GBD study that is going on every 10 years. So in that there is a very important measure called DALY. But now what is DALY? It is the disability adjusted life years. What do I mean by that? Means out of the total expected years of living. Okay, out of the total expected years of living, for example, expected years at birth, how many years am I expected to live? Out of that, how many years have been lost due to certain disability or disease? Okay, means a healthy life is starting. After some time, you are healthy here. After some time, a disability or a disease occurs. Okay, you are suffering from a very bad quality of life, and then you die early death. So you lost these many years from the expected life years. So these years of life lived due to disability YLD and the years of life lost YLL. So years lived due to disability and years of life lost. So YLD plus YLL is called DALY. So this is a disease or disability and early death. So this is again YLL, YLD, all these calculations are there very disease specific, because not all disease will cause the same number of lost years, or the same number of disability or same quality degradation of life. So there are different numbers or weightage attached to each disease. Okay. So you just need to remember DALY is YLL plus YLD, that is years of life lost due to premature mortality and years lived with disability. So this is the DALY, very important. So this YLL plus YLD, not the number of healthy living years. You do not consider that in DALY. So if a disease has more DALY, means the burden of the disease or the impact of the disease is more. If a disease has less DALY, then it is the impact of the disease is less. So that is why you calculate the DALY of a disease. Then there is the HALY and the QALY. So what are these? Based on the current rates of ill health and mortality, how long can a newborn be expected to live in full health? If you are just considering that just the number of years, how many years can that newborn live? So that is the HALE, health adjusted life expectancy, based on the current ill health rates and mortality. For example, a prolonged outbreak or something is going on, in that situation how long that newborn can survive, that is the health adjusted life expectancy, the number of years only. But all that number of years will not be lived in perfect health, right? Because some disease will be affected and that person will be affected later in life. Years will be affected due to some disability. Okay, so if you take that, there is the QLI, that is the quality adjusted life years. The quality adjusted life years. So one quality is 1 year of life, you multiply it by one utility value, means the quality of that 1 year that is lived, that is the utility value. So it is a year of life lived in perfect health. 1 Cali means year of life lived in perfect health, and half a year lived in perfect health is equivalent to 0.5 Cali. So these are some of the disability indicators that are measured: HALE and QLI, health adjusted life expectancy and quality adjusted life years. Okay, so the quality of that health is measured. So Cali is ranging from 0 to 1. 1 means lived in perfect health and 0 means death basically. Okay. Next we go to the nutritional status indicators. Again there are some examples like anthropometric measurements. If there is a nutritional deficiency, the child will not grow. So height, weight, BMI will change. So that is the anthropometric measurements. Then the height of children, prevalence of low birth weight, how many children are born low birth weight baby because of nutritional deficiency in mother, etc. Okay. Then there is the healthcare delivery indicators like doctor population ratio, doctors nurse ratio, population bed ratio, etc. So how good is the healthcare system? That is also a health indicator. Then there is the utilization of services, means how many infants are fully immunized, how many infants have received all the vaccines, how many pregnant women have their attention to antenatal care, deliveries happening, percentage of the population using various methods of family planning, the bed occupancy rate, bed turnover ratio. What this means is there are health services, how much of those health services are being utilized by the general people. Like how many children out of total children in that population are getting vaccinated. That is a utilization indicator. Okay. Then there is social and mental health indicators like suicide, homicide, violence, road traffic accident, smoking, consumption of tranquilizer, alcohol, drug abuse, etc. Then environmental indicators like how many people are having access to safe water, hygiene, sanitation. Then the AQI, radiation, solid waste, noise, exposure to toxic substances in food and drink. So listen, you know everything of this. You have heard all of this, you are seeing this everywhere. Just you know that these are called health indicators. Okay? And there are certain types of health indicators. Then there is the socio-economic indicators like per capita gross national product, level of unemployment, dependency ratio. Now, dependency ratio means in total how many under 15 children and above 65 adults are there compared to the productive age group of 15 to 45 or 15 to 65. Um, that is the dependency ratio. If the dependency ratio increases means most probably the children, the young dependency or the old dependency, the geriatric population might be growing. It is an indicator of that. Then there is a literacy rate, how many people are literate. Then family size, housing, rate of population, etc. Then there is the health policy indicators like proportion of GNP spent on health services, how much GDP or GNP is spent on health services, then spent on health related activities, proportion of total health resources devoted to primary healthcare, etc. So all these they are there so that we understand what is the status of health in our country. Okay. So this is the importance of health indicators. So again, uses are measurement of the health of the community, description of the health of the community, comparison of the health of different communities, identification health needs and prioritizing them, concurrent evaluation and terminal evaluation, planning and allocation. This is very important. When you know that what is the status of health, you then plan and allocate the health resources to that most needed areas accordingly. Okay, and then measurement of health successes. So these are all the use of indicators of health. Okay. Now, all these are okay, but where will we get this data? How will we collect this data? That we need that indicator, for that we need certain values, right, to calculate that indicators. Now, where will we get that values? So that is, we have to collect the data from somewhere. So what are the sources of those data? Firstly, that data is called epidemiological data. Any type of data that is there talking about the population is called the epidemiological data. Okay. So, firstly, what is epidemiology? We learned in the previous classes. It is a distribution, determinants and control of the disease. Okay. So, this is epidemiology. Now, from there we have to get the data about all these factors. Now, where will we get this data? What is data? Firstly, it is the discrete observations of attributes or events. Means certain event is occurring, something is occurring, you note that point. Okay, that is the data. They carry little meaning when considered alone. Like there are like 100 people in here, 100 people will have different weight. Every weight is there. I have noted down every weight, every data point, but they mean little when they are studied alone. Okay. They are transformed to information by reducing, summarizing and adjusting them. If I say that the mean weight of this class is 60 kg, then it will mean something. Okay, everyone is somewhere around 60 kg, then it will mean something to me. Otherwise, each of your weight is not important to me. I need to summarize them into information. So there are two types of data. There is the primary data and the secondary data. Now, because this is very important, because it depends what is the authenticity, what is the source of your data, from where you will calculate the indicator. So, this epidemiological data is a data or evidence relating to the occurrence, distribution, clinical and characteristics and control of the disease in a specified group or population. So, it is same as epidemiology. How to determine? Through primary or secondary data collection. Now, what is primary data? As you can see in this diagram, this is an example of a outbreak. Okay, an outbreak was occurred on a ship. What happened? There was a gastroenteritis outbreak on the ship. Some cooking has been going on in the pantry, and from that pantry, everyone got infected. Okay, so there was a sudden cruising starting here on 25th October, and then on 28th, many people had a spike of gastroenteritis, like 70 people in the ship were affected. And then after some time, it tapered down, and by 2nd of November, it ended. So this is a spike in the case, this is an outbreak of gastroenteritis on a ship. So something has occurred, and where this data got recorded, this is also a data, right? This is also a data and some information collected. So whoever was on that ship had collected that instantly, right? So this is the primary data collection. It is the original data collected for a specific purpose by the investigator. The investigator on the ship wanted to know how many people were affected, whether it is an outbreak or not. For example, epidemiologist interviews people who got ill on board. It is a drawback of primary data collection is it is very expensive, it takes time. Okay. So where do you get this primary data? You can get them by surveying. Okay. You can get them by notification of disease, outbreak surveillance data. You can get them by mortality statistics. Okay. Survey how to do? You can do interview. Okay. However, interview it measures the subjective phenomenon. What the person experienced, they will tell you. Okay, usually it measures the subjective phenomenon. Some people will say I have fever, some people will say I have very much pain, some people will say I have diarrhea, etc. etc. Some people will have fever but they will not report, etc. So that is the subjective phenomenon in a face-to-face interview. So there are certain types of questions in interview. There are the open-ended questions, there are the close-ended questions. Mainly, open-ended means you are just asking what are the symptoms you are having. Whatever the person will tell, you will note it down. Whatever answer they are saying, that is the open-ended question. And close-ended question means you will give them options like an MCQ, they will tick that option. That is the close-ended question. Okay. Then there is a face-to-face interview survey. So what are the advantages? Gives the population-based data on new cases of morbidity. It can receive participants' comment in real time. Gives accurate and focused data. Relatively easy to develop and administer, and can capture verbal and non-verbal cues. But the disadvantage of that is interviewer may be biased towards that person. Okay, they might ask questions to some other questions to other people. So everything will not be similar. Participant may not respond due to stigma or litigation. Recall by a participant might be incorrect. They might be remembering something wrong. Diagnosis may be incorrect, may not be cost effective. It will take time and money, as I said. So, how will you make it very specific and objective? You do a health examination. Because health examination will not lie to the doctor. Okay? So, team of doctors technician interview can do a survey by health examination. They can do objective based data collection like height, weight, blood pressure, sugar, collection of biological sample like blood, saliva, urine, etc. So advantages is it is a more valid estimation of disease, objectively based assessment, and more accurate understanding of the inequalities and used by the policy makers. Usually it is considered while making a policy. But the disadvantage is it is again very expensive and time consuming. It will take much time. It requires a skilled team. Just anyone cannot measure this examination part. Okay, they may not be comparable across multiple surveys and difficult to organize and implement than just interviews. So finally you go to the health records. Collection data from health service records. There are some health records there. In each hospital, for example, you can get the information from there. They may be offline or electronic. Advantages are it contains information from all providers involved in a patient care. So whatever the patient has taken, got the care from that particular institution, everything will be on record. Accurate, up-to-date, reliable information, decreased paperwork, easy to retrieve data. But the disadvantage is estimates are not population based, so it is basically usually a hospital based. In the population, there are many other factors and many other people suffering from maybe certain diseases, but you are not getting that data. Data may be missing, there may be lack of uniform procedures across hospitals, etc. Disruption will cause temporary productivity, and it will also incur cost due to software license fees, IT support, etc. So all this data must be detailed, and for that it needs cost. After this survey method, you can get the information by notification of the disease. What is notification? Means a disease when it is occurring, it is notified to the authority. Okay, it is reported to the authority. That is the notification of the disease. First health information subsystem to be established, it is to affect the prevention or the control of the disease. An example is notifying if there is an outbreak of a certain disease like typhoid or malaria or dengue. Whenever a case is there, it has to be notified to the higher authority. That is the notification of disease. From there you can get a data. These are some notifiable diseases in India. Okay, AFP, TB, cholera, rabies, measles, rubella, all these are notifiable diseases in India. Whenever a case occurs, it has to be notified. Okay. Then finally, there is a mortality statistics, that is accrued death rate, case fatality rate, proportionate mortality rates. So from there, you can get the some data and calculate, use in your information. Now, where are the sources of this mortality statistics? There is a hospital record, there is a registration of vital events like births and deaths. There are 2-3 types of vital events that are there: birth, death, and third is abortion nowadays. Okay, so these are the vital events. So there are death certificates, birth certificates also, which is the registration of vital events. Then there is a sample registration system or mortality survey. Survey about how many people have died and from what the people have died. And active and passive surveillance data. Okay. So hospital records are basically what you read before. Written records of admission, discharge, death, outpatients treated, total patient deaths, bed turnover rate, etc. From there, from the hospital records, we can get this data. But the advantage is it gives almost complete information. Then you get that by age, sex, geographical region from where the patients have come from. Medical records department, if computerized, they are very effective. But the disadvantage is it constitutes only the tip of the iceberg. Again, the population is not measured here. Okay, hospital statistics are highly selective, and the population at risk cannot be defined in this case. Next is a registration of vital events. There are certain forms that are given in hospital nowadays that you have to register. It is mandatory that whenever there is a birth, you have to get it registered. Whenever there is a death, you have to get it registered by law. Okay? So this is a live birth, deaths or stillbirths, marriage, divorce, adoption, everything has a registration. Okay? So, especially the death certificate. Whenever, if a person dies in a hospital, yes, they have a death certificate, or during the death, if they are attended by a doctor, they have a death certificate. Okay, so that is called the MCCD, Medical Certification of Cause of Death, MCCD. Okay, if complete and accurate, can serve as a reliable source. It keeps a continuous check on demographic changes, and by act they have to do that. But the reporting of deaths has to be done by family members and our institute's heads only. It is not automatic. So what happens is, out of the whole number of total deaths that are there, only 22.5% are being registered. Okay, still not all deaths are being registered because they are not reported by the hospital or the doctor or the family members, etc. And it is implemented only in medical institutions, and coding of deaths are variable. That coding of deaths means death from what cause. There is a whole coding book of diseases that is called ICD, International Classification of Disease, and deaths have to be coded according to that ICD. Every death cause has a code there, like 5.1, 5.2, like that. Every cause has a code there, and according to that, you have to put that code to the cause of death in that certificate. So there are different variations. Sometimes the codes are not properly mentioned, etc. So for what about the missing people who did not have the certification of death? They are covered through the SRS, that is the sample registration system. Every 3 or 4, I think not, every 2 years, the SRS bulletin is published. The SRS bulletin means the sample registration system bulletin. It is to meant to complement this registration system and MCCD, so that people who are missed by the certification can be covered by a survey. First, for example, in a community, what do they do? Now you are, as a health official, you are actively going to that community and doing a baseline survey. Then continuous enumeration means you are just understanding how many people have died. You go home to home and then asking, has any people died here? Do they have certification of death? If they are not having, because they died at home, maybe their death was not reported. So what did they die from? So completely every 6 months, the people go there and try to enumerate the cause of death there. Okay. Then there is a half yearly survey matching whether a person who is enumerator is going and collecting the data, another person will come, supervisor, and then will try to match the data, whether whatever he is being told, it is matching the data that is collected by the previous person, the enumerator. So they verify it especially. Then field verification of unmatched and partially matched events, and finally the coding of the VA forms means then the data is collected is then filled in that verbal autopsy form. Since the person has died and no one knew before, no certification is there. So whatever the next of kin is telling you, that is kind of like a verbal autopsy for the cause of death. So there are forms called verbal autopsy forms which help in the sample registration system of deaths. So the rest of the deaths in India, information and cause of death are collected by this SRS. Okay. So this is an example of an SRS bulletin that is there. It gives us the infant mortality rate, the death rate, the birth rate, etc. So all this information comes from the SRS. So this is also kind of health indicator that the SRS is making from the data it is collecting. Okay. MMR, maternal mortality ratio. How much is there in India throughout the years? Every 2 years the enumeration is done. So then we come to the secondary data. What is secondary data? Until now what we are learning is primary data. So after this, what is secondary data? Secondary data means someone else has collected it for some reason. I am using the data for another purpose. I am not collecting the data primarily by myself. The data has already been collected. I am just reusing it for another purpose. Okay, that is the secondary data. Data initially collected for another purpose by individuals. For example, maternal mortality data from childbed fever in 2 clinics used by Semmelweis to determine whether hand washing practice is associated with different rates of mortality. Semmelweis, well, this is a historical case basically. Semmelweis was a person who established the practice of hand washing. What happened during that time was there was a clinic in which there were 2 sections. In one section, the delivery was done by the doctors, and in one section, the delivery was done by the midwives. Deaths, number of mothers who were dying from childbed fever or the puerperal sepsis, the sepsis that occurs during the infection that occurs during childbirth. So in each hospital record they just wanted to report. But Semmelweis used it for another purpose. He saw how many deaths were occurring in that from the doctor clinic and from that midwife clinic, and then compared it and then compared their hand washing practices. He found that the clinic that was run by midwives were having much less number of puerperal sepsis deaths than doctors. Why? Because doctors at that time didn't practice hand washing between the delivery. They delivered one person and moved on to the next person directly, because they at that time hand washing was considered a waste of time. So Semmelweis had that theory that no, because hand washing is not done, the mothers are dying more. So by this data he established that fact and then enforced that no, everyone should hand wash in between the delivery. Okay, so he used one data and repurposed it for his theory, for his test. So he, in that way, after some time, the hand washing practice started. So this is the use of secondary data. The sources of secondary data, like from this data, you can use it for your study. What are those second data? That is the census, the household national household survey, the disease registers, environmental health data, insurance record, medical plan. So all these data are there, collected for certain purpose. But you can use the data from these databases and you can use that in your other purpose or study. Okay. So census, again, you know what is census. I am not going to explain this. It is the largest administrative exercise in the country. Then its function is to collect demographic information like age and sex, social and economic characteristics and indicators, and basic data to calculate the vital statistics like birth rate, etc. So census is the data is there. You can collect the data from there and use it for your study. Then there is the NFHS, the National Family Household Survey. It's like that. National Family Health Survey, and there is the Household Survey as well. It is household is a common sampling unit. Based on that sampling unit, based on that unit of household, we collect the data. How much food are they consuming? What is the health status? What is the anthropometric measurements? What is the income and expenditure of the whole household? By that unit, we are calculating the from the survey, like National Family Health Survey, district level health survey, etc. These are surveys that are NFHS 6 has just occurred. The data has not been published yet. It will be published, I think, in a short while. So it is a very important data source. Then there is a definition that difference that comes like census versus survey. Okay, so what is a census? It collects data about each and every member of the population, but the survey, it collects data from a sample or a subset of the population. Okay, census needs more time, money, material and manpower, but survey needs less time, money and manpower. Census needs high organization skill, survey needs less organization skill. Survey can be done basically by any person who is trained. Okay, and census is very reliable and accurate, but survey is not that much precise. Census is useful in heterogeneous population. Heterogeneous means people of different types. Okay, but survey is useful in homogeneous population, people of the same type. Then census is needed for population level policies, survey is needed for targeted interventions, like you will give iron folic supplementation among the pregnant mother so that anemia does not occur. It is like that. So you do a survey among the pregnant mothers. But census is for everyone. That is the difference. Then there are some disease registers and morbidity statistics like hospital-based register, population-based register, etc. From there, you are just noting the number of the diseased person only. Okay, how many diseases are occurring? Who are those persons who are diseased? So these are the disease registers. Limitation is absence of a defined population base, hence rates cannot be calculated. For example, National Cancer Registry Program, National Stroke Registry Program, okay. Then registry of people with diabetes in India with young age at onset. So there are certain registers that are there in India. And then again many other morbidity studies like insurance schemes and everything is there. Okay, from these data collecting methods from these platforms, you can get the data for other purposes. Then there is the environmental health data where you can see the level of sulfur dioxide spikes during a certain period of time in a city. So from here you can understand the impact of this pollution on air pollution on health. It is like this. So it provides the data on various aspects of noise, air and water pollution, etc. Air is air quality index, ambient air pollution, household air pollution. Water is wash indexes, then access to safe drinking water, water quality index, noise pollution level, food adulteration, occupational hazards. Okay, so these are all the collection points of data, and from there you can mix with just morbidity, mortality and other health indicators.